Okay. Having to socialize with my girlfriend's family is the worst part of a relationship. How does it go for you guys? I'm an autist who would rather stay home than go out. All right, we got Mr. Antisocial here. We got the autist. Um, I've struggled with this myself. I'm naturally introverted. But as I got older, thanks to my career, I had to become more extroverted. And that's going to be true for a lot of you. As your career scales, you want your career to scale because you want to start making more money over time. And typically, the way to make more money is to be a more agreeable person, somebody who's easy to work with, somebody who's interesting to talk to, somebody who demonstrates curiosity in other people's opinions. That's kind of the characteristics of a good coworker, and they're essential characteristics if you want to be a leader. And so that was what happened to me. Is I got put into a position of leadership, and despite the fact that I was highly introverted, I found out immediately that I had to change, or at least I needed to be able to flip this switch and pretend to be extroverted so that I could succeed in my career. And so that's what I did, and it was, like I said, it was forced. It wasn't a decision for me. I think I should try to grow a little bit. It was kind of forced on me, but I'm very glad. I mean, I wouldn't take it back. I wouldn't be sitting here on a stream showing my life to complete strangers and all that stuff if I was so fiercely introverted still. So you got to become more extroverted, and the way you do that is through exposure therapy. But yeah, it's totally possible that the guy's girlfriend's family is just lame. Funny story here. I do recall I dated a girl for a brief period of time, and like just long enough to meet her parents. And I only met them once, and I gotta say, they were some of the lamest people, like really lame. And it was hard for me. Like I was sitting there trying to imagine future Thanksgivings, future Christmases, and I was like, man, I wasn't that crazy about the girl in the first place. And so once I met the family, who was like hella lame, yeah, I don't think this is working. I don't think this is gonna work out, because I'm thinking in terms of wife and kids, right? So if I can't imagine my grandkids going and having a fun time I'm sorry, not my grandkids. If I can't imagine my kids going and hanging out with her parents, which are going to be their grandparents, this isn't a good likely to end well scenario. I want to be excited about my kid going to the grandparents' house. I want to be actively involved in their life. So they need to be interesting people. And it sounds like this guy doesn't believe his girlfriend's parents are that interesting or engaging, but he's also autistic. And so it's hard to say whose fault it is. It might just be that he doesn't have the social capabilities, and there's nothing wrong with them at all. He's the one who's lame. He's the one that his only things to talk about are video games and Andrew Tate or something. He's sitting here hanging out on 4chan, posting pictures of Base Hunter. So I can tell you that he probably doesn't have that much insight for grown adults to have good conversations about. I mean, think about it. What if her parents ask him, have you been keeping an eye on the stock market and what's happening there? No. How about the housing market? No. Well, how about politics and current events? No. Well, how's your spiritual life? I don't go to church. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, a lot of these problems are self-imposed. You need to be an interesting person and fully round it out yourself. And as you round yourself out, you'll become less autistic because you have more interest to talk about. The more interest that you have, the more potential commonalities you have with the people you interact with. Because you can't expect everybody to participate in the one hobby that you have. If your entire life, for example, is just going to the gym, that's it. Your entire life revolves around bodybuilding. Well, the people that are going to be in your life that are actually connecting with you on a regular basis, you've pretty much limited that down to just being fellow bodybuilders. You know, if you're politically unaware of what's going on, and like I said, you don't have a spiritual life, you're not talking about investments and how to grow your wealth, you're just not that interesting of a person, and you're honestly not even accomplishing that much. They're kind of one and the same. Interesting and accomplishments. People who have accomplished things are more interesting because they can sit there and tell you stories about how they accomplished them. But if you haven't accomplished anything other than level 100 on some video game, do you think anybody wants to hear about that other than guys who play video games? Do you think women want to hear about what level you are on whatever game? Do you think her parents want to hear about that? So that's my feedback to this guy. He's gotta work on himself. This sounds like this is probably a him problem. And to his credit, he knows he's autistic. He knows he's got things to work on. Hopefully, he can remain honest with himself and actually lay out a plan on how to work on these things.